Awesome. All right, man. Well, then to kick things off, let's start with that same boring ass intro, even though you've been here before. Who are you? And just a little background on yourself.
Hello, I'm Mikey from the Gloom in the Corner. I am the vocalist and the primary songwriter in the band.
Awesome. For those that aren't familiar, Mikey and I had a talk. Man, it's been probably 2 years ago now. I should have looked at
I
that.
think it's closer to four.
Has it been that long? Man,
Yeah.
it's crazy. Time isn't real. Uh,
No, it's not. It doesn't feel like
uh,
four.
no, it definitely doesn't. Um, for people that are unfamiliar, we've got that previous conversation where we deep dive into some of the lore around the Gloom in the Corner and just kind of giving that baseline structure. This time around, we're talking about a new album, that lore expansion, and just the rawness of this new album. From what I've heard, is so much uh, an amplification thanks to all the political bullshit and world stuff that's been going on. So for people that aren't familiar, let's dive into that. You guys have this really cool universe that you write in, and we've talked about like kind of the um maybe Coheed and Cambria esque type thing for people that are trying to like place what we mean by that. Um, this album is a continuation of the story. Uh, so let's talk about what the next steps look like for the characters and for Gloom in the Corner.
Well, I mean, I can't talk too much about this record. It'd be like spoiling a TV show.
Yeah. So
But
the record comes out what, the 27th,
yep.
and so this will be going up just so that we have a timeline established here. Should be going up on the 11th, so a week from
Okay.
Wednesday, a couple weeks before release.
Cool. Okay. So I know what I can and can't talk about.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, no, I think from a story perspective, like, yeah, you're very much right. I guess for like a little bit of background for how we kind of approach this record too. Um, Trinity did an amazing job of, I guess, kind of setting like that placeholder or that basis of like, this is a big, grandiose, over the top, hubris inducing bullshit concept narrative.
Yeah.
um, and it did I think, I mean, I like to think, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I think it did a wonderful job of telling the story in a way that, like, we kind of haven't done it before.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess kind of the same thing kind of comes with Jericho as well, which we put out in 2024. Um, and, you know, with that being said, though, what we kind of found with Trinity, especially when it came to a live aspect, was that a lot of that was being lost in translation. And it's not just like the lyrical side of things, it's also like the actual writing for the record,
Mm-hmm.
too. There's so much going on in Trinity. I actually went back and listened to it the other day, and I'm like, holy shit, how did we get away with this? Um, and so what we found was like a lot of the parts like weren't translating live as well as what we kind of liked too.
Yeah.
And so when it came to writing this record, we very much, or at least I very much, was conscious of how these songs were going to translate live. And with that, um, I kind of realized, at least like lyrically, that in order for this to kind of work, I have to roll back like as much of like the storytelling of what is actually going on and focus more on what is happening emotionally for those characters.
Yeah.
Um, and so that was like a bit of a shift too, because I haven't really done that since, I want to say, like Flesh and Bones kind of era, or maybe the Ultimate Bolivia 3 track.
Yeah.
And that was like 6 years ago now. So thinking consciously about that, like we had to consciously think about what was working live and what doesn't. So like a lot of the story, if you're expecting like a lot of the storytelling elements from Trinity and whatnot, they're not really there as much as what you will be expecting, with the exception of maybe two or three tracks. The
Yeah.
rest of it is like very much like emotionally driven, I guess you could kind of say. Because as I said, I found that like if you have a repeating chorus hook or something like that, it's kind of hard to tell a story when you have to constantly go back over yourself.
Mm-hmm.
um, but for that influence though, like yeah, there was definitely like a lot of what was going on conflict wise in the world that also certainly influenced it, even from the story side of things. Like I knew that there was going to be, coming in with uh, the big bad king coming in at the end of Hail to the King. I knew that there was going to be some sort of conflict
Yeah.
that would be put out throughout the record. Um, but it kind of just perfectly, well, not perfectly timed because there are horrible things going on in the world, but it kind of
Right.
just everything just sort of
Serendipitously timed.
serendipitously kind of happened, and I'm like, okay, well, I can take influence from what is going on in the world to kind of explore that and everything too, because it is very similar to what is going on in the Gloom War, and it's probably like the closest thing, I guess, like politically and um, analogically, um, going on to something with like what is happening in real life too, which I
Yeah.
think is kind of wild. And that I said, it was just, as you said, it was just serendipitous. Like it just, everything just started happening, and I'm like, well, this is actually kind of basically what we're writing about already. So I do have to tread carefully with what I do and don't say, but
Right.
um, it's yeah, it was a wild experience for sure, and like yeah, it's without
Yeah.
going like too much into it and everything like that. Like yeah, pretty much the basis of the story is there's a resistance faction against this king, and you can point the finger at several conflicts which are going on in the world at the moment, which is referential to that. I don't think
Yeah.
there's any one in particular, to be fair. Um, and so yeah, it is like a fair, I want to say fairly politically charged, but like it just kind of just happened to be what it is, just because of the
Yeah.
nature of the story and everything.
Yeah. No, it that totally makes sense. And I think, it's really, I don't know what word I want to use for it. Like it's serendipitous that moments are tying to real life as well, but it's also like really kind of fucked up, I guess, because I don't
Yeah,
have a better word for it. That it's like you've been writing this story about this universe and this world, and kind of a little bit of dystopia that's happening, and these major conflicts and oppressions, and then it's like, okay, we stepped back into the real world. Oh shit, they're here
that's
too.
still happening. Yeah.
Yeah. So and I love what you guys do, story wise, where Trinity especially is very much a audio comic book of sorts. It is an audio graphic novel. You're feeling and experiencing that story. And I think maybe that's what I like so far with the new album, is that it's not exactly that
Mhm.
now it's, well, these are the things that the people are feeling, and this is how these events have affected these as individuals, because it almost brings in that realism, or that it makes those characters feel not just like, oh, we pigeonholed them or shoehorned them into the story.
Yep.
They've got a backstory and they have emotions.
Yeah, I figure it kind of makes it like a lot more immersive too. There was
Yeah.
always kind of like that disconnect with Trinity. Like there was a few songs which were obviously like emotionally charged and everything like that when you're telling the story, but like nowhere near as how depressing or how high it can kind of get. I
Right.
think
Right.
as this record can kind of go. And so yeah, as I said, it was a very conscious decision to kind of do that too, with the exception of a couple of tracks, just because it's kind of needed,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Without giving away the timeline of the universe or anything like that, Royal Discordance is the new album. Where does this fall in that timeline mentally for you? Is this kind of chapter one's climax? Are we, what I mean? Like how much more grandiose can we get? And like, what's that decision point of this story has, I don't think it's come to fruition final yet,
No.
but like, is this kind of that step of, okay, guys, here's the big climax. Now we're going home with the story.
So I feel like like at least mentally in my mind, like this is kind of like the middle point. I feel
Yeah.
like. Fun fact about this record, actually, like this was meant to be. I mean, not originally because this kind of deters it a little bit, but this was originally meant to be the closer for the next for the Trinity arc.
Yeah.
I think when I first like initially started writing it, and then I was like, well, we had like 3 or 4 releases for the first one, which was between Fear Me and Ultima. Um, and so I feel like if we wrapped up this second arc too quickly, then we don't really get to explore a lot of like what the characters are doing and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Or it would just like kind of it would be like a Trinity Part 2 where it just like rushes by really quickly and you're like, oh, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Um, so this one is very much like the middle point. We like to, as I said, like try and treat the story like almost like a TV series where like each season has its own arc and everything like that.
Hmm.
Or like or Supernatural where it's like 2 or 3 seasons will have its own arc. If this is like season 2 of arc 2, I guess
Yeah.
to put it, yeah, 2 of 2 of 2. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, and it made it easier because it meant that we got to explore the world a lot more and see like what the characters are doing and everything like that. As far as like a timeline goes in the story, the first track immediately jumps off of the heels of Hail to the King. Like it is, you know how you get like those TV shows which end on like a cliffhanger, and then the first immediate scene is that like last scene from the TV show.
Yeah.
That's the problem with apocalyptic. The problem with I can't speak this morning. Apocalyptic tyranny.
Yeah.
um, and then after that, with You Didn't Like Me, then it jumps forward 6 months in time.
Okay.
And we see like how Clara has started building like her resistance and stuff like that, and coming into her own and everything. There's only really like 1 or 2 tracks which are out of place, I guess, continuity wise, and that's between Short Range and You Didn't Like Me Then. Originally in the story, they were meant to be flipped, but it doesn't really kind of matter too
Yeah.
much from a continuous point of view. So yeah, that's what we're kind of at, and then the rest of that explores how like um, where like the character of Jay is on the opposite side to everyone, so he's working for the king, and on how he kind of like deals with that because he's kind of forced into it. Um, and so we get a lot of his side of the story in this record too. Um, and we get a little bit of Rachel, but she's like less of the focus, I guess, for this
Yeah.
record because I did predominantly want to make a lot of it about Clara and especially like Jay, because those are two ones butting head for most of the record, I'd say.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and then it all wraps up with like one big battle between like the resistance faction and the king. And I'm not going to say anything more than that because I don't want to spoil anything.
No, no, you're
Um,
totally good. No, and I think the reason I bring that up is because of something you lightly touched on there is, I think it's an unfortunate trap that a lot of like concept albums fall into where it's like we have to keep constantly pushing forward instead of exploring what's on the sides a little bit.
mhm.
And I think that's where this album goes is like, well, we're still moving forward, but we're kind of off the main trail a little bit so that we can explore what's in that side. And I think it's really cool for fans that enjoy this type of art because, you know, we've talked about Coheed before. I think Coheed did a really good job with allowing that space. And I mean, look at the fan base now. I mean, there's tattoos and everything else that goes on and fan fiction that's been written,
I'm waiting for
for
that to
better or
happen.
for worse.
I'm also terrified of that happening.
Yeah. Yeah. um but I guess to circle that back to you guys, I think that's again just a props to you for not falling in that kind of, well, we just have to keep pushing forward so people understand what's happening. It's no, it's my characters, it's my world. We're going to slow down a little bit. We're going to give that
Take a
expansion.
breather. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. I appreciate that. That was very much consciously like kind of what we had in mind too.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about like the writing and structuring of the album. You mentioned, having played the whole story up until now live and noticing things that maybe don't resonate as well or are harder to translate. You talked about the intentionality of kind of writing and performing it this way now. What's that process been like comparatively to like the Trinity arc?
So like it was very strenuous, to put it lightly, because it pretty much had to flip like a lot of what we were originally doing on its head. And I feel like with Trinity, what kind of worked was that we had so much time to do everything. Um, and that, like a lot of the songs that had been written for Trinity, like we had, or I had written kind of like years prior.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not sure if you remember last time I was saying, but like there were songs on Trinity which were like over 6 years old at that point.
Yeah.
Like Red Clouds was around before even Gloom was a thing, just a completely different iteration of it. Um, Whereas this time, like a lot of it we had to, because of like the nature of what the songs had to be, a lot of it was very much like starting fresh with a blank page. There was only one song from our back catalog, or from my bank of back cataloged songs, which
Yeah.
made it onto the record, and that was Love One. Love One was written in, I want to say 2018, 2019. Um, and that was the only one that stayed, and that also came from that original kind of version of what the record was originally meant to
Yeah.
be as well. Um, and so a lot of it was very much like starting fresh, because as I said, we started doing, like I had like a couple of songs written before we went to Europe, and then we went to Europe and realized, oh, a lot of this stuff, especially in like in a fresh market where a lot of people don't know us,
Yeah.
is not translating in the way that we want it to. So consciously we made the decision to start like writing for a live aspect and everything like that, and I think that really evidently shows throughout the record,
Yeah.
um with the exception of a couple of songs. And it was, yeah, it was a tough time, because like I said, like I'm used to just going like, okay, this part, this part, this part, this part, this part, not necessarily riff salad per se, but like just writing, I guess, progressively, as
Right.
opposed to going like, okay, we this needs to be a little bit more structured. um so yeah, it took a while to kind of get everything done, and there was usually I kind of write in tandem of like, oh, I'll do like maybe like 50% of the vocals first, and then like 50% of the story, or like I'll write like one block, put down vocals to it or something, or an idea of vocals to it, move on to the next part, yada yada yada. Whereas this time I
Yeah.
kind of had to make sure that like at least 75% of the bed was pretty much there before putting anything else kind of down, and that kind of included like all the orchestral stuff and everything too. Um, and really, the only time I put orchestral stuff in before that 75% was put down was because if I had the idea initially, or it was based around the orchestral stuff.
You're right.
Um, so yeah, it was certainly a challenge, and I think I was saying to somebody the other day, what made it even more difficult was that like right before Trinity came out, our longtime guitarist, the person I started pretty much the project with, Matt, he left. He had like personal stuff that like he had
Hmm.
to go do, and so, but he was like the one that I would kind of bounce ideas off, where like I would go come up with some crazy batshit thing, and he would be the one to kind of he'd be the one to
Reel
kind
you
of like
back a little
rein
bit.
it, yeah, rein it in. And so not having that buffer there kind of made me lose it a little bit, because I was like, I don't know what we're kind of doing. Like I've written like one of the first songs written for the record was Angel's Wrath Whiskey, and I really wanted to do like a whole heap of stuff like that, but I also wanted to do like a whole heap of heavier stuff too. And so trying to find that balance without somebody to kind of bounce it off was really difficult. And um yeah, it wasn't until like we like halfway through 2024 um did like most of like the bulk of everything kind of start to sound rounded out and everything.
Yeah.
um and I think like what actually kind of helped do that too was we knew we needed a bit more time to get more music out, and so that's where Jericho came from as well. I knew I had
Hmm.
that idea. That was probably actually the only thing that I had first, was I had fully penned out the story, including, not like including the short story, but I included like everything narratively, and like pretty much meticulously planned out that song, but made it work in what Royal Discordance kind of feels like now, and that was a good testing ground for that.
Yeah.
So once we kind of locked that in, it made it a little bit easier, but most of the stuff didn't really get rounded out until halfway through 2024. Um, so yeah, it was really difficult, but once we kind of locked that in, we were more or less fine. What made arty, different from Trinity, as well as I went to a producer in the States in October of 2024. So we had
Hmm.
like most of the songs written out. There was only we had 11 of the 12 songs written, and the 12th song was there, but it ended up being replaced with That's Life. Um, and so working with the producer also helped kind of round out those rough edges and change things up and make sure that everything flowed properly too. So that was a big change. So big change compared to what we did with Trinity, which was pretty much we'll let off the leash a little bit in a good and bad way. Um, and while we've been reined in, I think it's for the much better. I think.
Yeah, yeah. Um, that producer was Jonathan DeLeese, right? Who's done
Yes.
stuff with Cane Hill, Drugs, Chelsea Grin back in the day. Like,
Oh no, he's just done Chelsea Green.
oh, was it the new one of
Yeah.
Chelsea's? Okay.
Yep. He's doing
Either
Darvo
way,
right now too. Yeah.
yeah, and that so like that's what I was gonna say is this dude has had his fingers in a number of different projects, but like
Mm-hmm.
it feels like he loves that dark and heavy stuff. So what was it like
Yes, he
having
does.
somebody that was like, yes, this is what I want to be in
It
to work
was
with,
very
you know?
cool. Yeah, no, it was very very cool. I was really kind of terrified, for lack of a better term, at the start because as I said we haven't really had a producer since like
Mm-hmm.
2020. Um, and with the producers that we've had before that, not that I'm like throwing shade or anything like that, I just wasn't happy with how my vocals kind of came out with anything before Trinity. Um, and yeah, like I feel like I just never really kind of got the best out of me, and I feel like it's because we are always under a time crunch with the producer.
Yeah.
Um, and so working with John, I was really terrified to kind of go into because like not only have we not had a producer since I don't know since like 2020 at that point, um, I was also flying halfway across the world for it. So if I get there and we don't really mesh, like fuck, how are these
Right.
next 3 weeks going to go?
Yeah.
um, but thankfully, like he immediately just locked in, understood what we were about, understood like what I wanted to get from the record. He understood what I wanted to get from him, and yeah, we just absolutely smashed through it and worked like a house on fire. So yeah, it was really really cool, and he's a phenomenal producer. He's very good at his job. There's a reason why a lot of people are going to him now.
Yeah.
He's just switched on and just gets it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very cool.
It it's always awesome to hear like when you find somebody that understands the project and is energized by the project as well, and it's not just a, and I'm not trying to throw shade at anybody, but it's just the nature of it, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes it's just I'm collecting a paycheck,
Yeah,
your
no,
label
I fully
paid me to be
understand
here,
that.
you know. um but when they actually get it and they're like, okay, we've got something here, like how do I take your vision, take your vocals, and just crank it up to 11, for lack of a better analogy. And you know, I think with John, on especially on his work with some of the Cane Hill stuff, like I think he's somebody that just, when it's someone as talented as yourself, Kane, you know, now I forgot his name, um Craig from Drugs, you know, when he gets a hold of somebody that is a vocal powerhouse and has the range, because what I'm gonna blow some smoke up your ass in the sense that like I know you don't love compliments, but like the range that you have in your vocals is insane. And so like when he gets a hold of somebody like that too, because Craig is the same way,
Hmm.
it's awesome to see like how well he's like, okay, we can do the heavy stuff and we can do that really really well, but we can also highlight when you need to go a little bit lighter.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I think like there was kind of like a conscious decision there as well to make this record lighter, for lack of a better term.
Mm-hmm.
As well, I think like I wear my Mikey influence on my sleeve pretty
Yeah.
openly.
Yeah, it's
um,
a good one to
and my
have.
it's a good one to have, and my old school post hardcore kind of stuff too. But I think like what kind of helped with this time compared to a lot of the other times that we've gone to producers is that like the music also caters a lot better too. Like we like Flesh and Bones, for example, was you know had like those few songs which are like, kind of heavy and everything like that, and that's where
Hmm.
our producer at the time worked really well with them. But where I kind of like felt that it came flat, both from just like from me not being as experienced as what I am now, but also I feel like not being pushed as hard, was like in some of like the softer stuff and the cleaner stuff. And that's, I think like mentally, even since back then, I knew that like I kind of wanted to go slightly lighter and lighter and lighter and incorporate like a lot more singing.
Hmm.
And so that was also kind of consciously written in with this record too, was there's going to be a lot more clean singing. I just have a lot more fun doing it compared to
Yeah.
screams, to be honest. Unless it's a song like Assassination Run, then I have fun with it.
Right.
So I have to really I feel like I have to really kind of pick and choose the moments in which I'm like, deciding to switch between the two.
Yeah.
So yeah, he just, as I said, like he's worked with some phenomenal fucking vocalists before. And he really does know how to get like the best out of you a lot of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, it's nice to hear you say, or cool to hear you say, like, you're leaning a little more intentional with some of that clean vocals and the quote unquote pretty vocals, because I think at this point in the story, again, going into that emotional driven part of the story, that's the dichotomy between clean vocals and heavy growls and shit is
Hmm.
going to be a major factor of like, oh, I can feel where this character's at.
Yeah. As a homie from Dark Complex used to say back on the day on Reddit, was that like you can get so much more emotion from clean vocals than you can with heavy. Like, don't get me wrong, heavy like screams and stuff like that have their place for sure, and they work really well with really, really, really heavy songs. But when you have like a softer emotional song, unless you're counterparts, um, then
They
like
can
a
do
lot of
no
the
wrong,
time,
right?
yeah, no, Brendan can do no wrong. Then I feel like there has to be a change up, at least for me as well with my style of screams. Like it's, I'm not afraid to say like it's a bit of a one trick pony style of scream, and it works really well with like certain aspects.
Hmm.
But when you really want to get to the emotional stuff, like I feel like it kind of falters out, and that's fine. I'm happy to admit that.
Yeah.
um but that's where like cleans come in, and that's where I really wanted to put the focus, was in that in that singing delivery for sure. And as I said, John immediately clocked onto that too. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And you mentioned the more uh intentional orchestral parts in this new album as well. And as cool as it can be, screams with orchestral stuff is not always going to mesh very well.
no, not always.
So you go through this writing process, you work with John, you're developing the story and kind of making sure it all flows structurally. I say it about all regular albums too, but with concept albums especially, like the importance of listening front to back to hear the story is is massive. And like you said, there may be a song or two that could be interchanged or whatever, but I think what is interesting, at least to me, when it comes to a band like you with the concept albums, is picking those singles to tease the next chapter of the story. What's that been like with this album, being like,
Oh,
well, where do we go to, like, we were telling you this thing's happening, but we don't want to ruin anything, or we don't want to
of
like
course.
push somebody the wrong direction on it.
So it was actually very easy picking the singles this time around, thankfully. Because what like I've obviously written like a few of the songs kind of to be singles anyway. I think that's very evident with Angels. That's very evident with the next one that's coming out with You Didn't Like Me Then. Spoiler, sorry. Um,
This will be out
um,
right around the same time, right?
yeah, no, it's the 19th. We would have announced it by
Yeah.
then anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, thankfully, like Sharp Tone and the people there were very clued in. Like immediately, like the first list that they sent back was, I think, You Didn't Like Me Then, Angel's Wrath, Short Range, and Painkiller. And the only two that we swapped around was, I specifically said that I didn't want to do Short Range as a single, um, which everybody clapped back on me for. But there's a reason for that, and it's because
Yeah.
like it is kind of like the one of the two, I like to say, Trinity songs on the record, and I don't
Hmm.
want to put that out and immediately give people that vibe. Um, and so I said, can we swap it for Assassination Run? which I think was the smarter play personally. And
No bias.
no bias, no bias at all. Because I wanted people to be like, yeah, we're still like we still have the clean stuff like with Jericho, especially that one being the next one after Jericho. In quite a while, we wanted to give people that like, no, we can still do heavy stuff, guys. Don't have to chill.
Yeah.
And then immediately whiplash them with Angel's Wrath whiskey. um, and then we were kind of discussing internally as a group, and I said like they want to do Painkiller. I'm happy to do Painkiller, but do we have any other opinion? And they were like, everyone was, can we do Nope instead? Because that song was kind of written to be the heavy hook kind of single, kind of like Assassination Run. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so we came back with that one, like, can we do Nope instead? And they were like, yeah, sure, that works for us too. That was going to be the second pick. Um, and so yeah, it was pretty easy, and I feel like the singles that we've kind of chosen aren't like super heavy in the story. I like to say Assassination Run from the point of view from the record is kind of like a side quest anyway. So we're not
Mm-hmm.
really kind of like spoiling anything or anything like that. There's like a little side bit to the story, but like it's neither here nor there. Um, Angel's Wrath I wanted to do because it's a really good um, contrast, I think, for Jericho, especially for the character of Rachel from where she is in Jericho to where she is now, especially after the
Mm-hmm.
record. I wanted to put that through. And they were like Sharptone were really big on it too because of that chorus. Nope again was like the same thing. Like I'm not really spoiling too much of like anything that's going on in the story.
Right.
And then having You Didn't Like Me Then as kind of like the Kickstarter point for when the story really kind of kicks off, was important as well. And because it's like such a upbeat and happy song, I think as well. Um, I wanted to show people that we don't just write about death and guns and beating the shit out of each other. Like we wanted to showcase like a little bit of a lighter side, a little bit of a cheekier side.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
Yeah. No, I think that's awesome. And I think we talked about it last time too, and I've definitely talked about it with other artists on the label. Sharptone seemingly is so tuned into the roster and like, okay, we know what your personality is, we know what the image is for the band, we know where we're going with this, and like it feels like they're one of a handful of labels that actively is like, well, what do you guys think your single should be? Whereas I hear stories all the time, and I'm sure you have plenty of them as well, where it's like, yeah, we don't care what you said. This is the fucking single, and you're
yep.
gonna deal with it. Like, too bad.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. No, they're very tuned in. Like we had a bit of a, I think like we had a bit of a back and forth with Trinity. Um, there was, I think like really the initial one that we all collectively said yes to was New Order, and then like the other three we were kind of battling with. But like this time I was very much like, because this is an album which is very, I don't want to say very commercialized because that doesn't sound right, but like you can tell in the songwriting that like we're a lot more structured now.
Yeah.
I was kind of willing to go like, yeah, like I don't really mind what the singles are because I'm pretty confident that at least like if the first like anything of the first nine songs are picked, then I don't mind, and I'm happy to work around it and workshop it and everything.
Yeah.
And so I said like they pretty much like nailed like what I wanted a lot of the singles to be anyway. Like they got three or four, and then we just happened to swap around Painkiller. Um, but yeah, no, they're very tuned in to their roster. They know what they're doing.
Yeah. And I think too, going back to the Trinity, you know, era, where Taylor Swift all of a sudden have eras. But going back to that time, I think that album is such a lore rich album that it is kind of important on what tracks are going out at
Yeah,
what time, because like this is a crucial piece of the story.
yeah. I was very particular about that. Whereas this, I said like this time, I'm like I'm not as invested into what you guys choose this time
Yeah,
within reason. So
sure. Yeah, I mean, and at least it's not one of those situations too. I think this is a very intentional thing that you do. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the common thing in the industry recently has been, hey, we have this 12-track album. We're going to put out 8 fucking singles before it ever comes out. and you guys are not in that boat. It's look, we're going to do 3 to lead up and then 1 right before the album comes out to like
Yeah.
get that last hook. Let's talk a little bit about that intentionality, because I think it it's kind of twofold, right? Like one is because there's a story to be told and it's important that it comes out in the right way.
Hmm.
But I think the other part of that too is like, I think we mentioned this the last time we talked. You and I are from the old school. Like, that's not how you didn't release half the album, 3/4 of an album, and then go, oh, by the way, that's called this, and here's the rest of it.
Yeah.
So, like, what's that been like for you on this cycle?
It's been interesting, I think, because like what me and Paul, our bassist, had originally kind of like envisioned of what we think could be really cool is that the best way to kind of think about this record is it has like 3 acts,
Mm-hmm.
and it starts with the problem of apocalyptic tyranny. First act is first apocalyptic tyranny. Not awake enough.
So early in the morning.
So early in the morning. It goes from problem to short range, and then Act Two is Nope to Assassination Run, and then Act Three is That's Life through to Love Two. And so what we kind of originally envisioned would be cool would be to release each act as its own thing, and have
Mm-hmm.
one single or music video from each act to do it, and we spread it across like 9 months. Um, However, by the time that we kind of got everything wrapped and everything, we're like, no, we need to do this properly. It's been like 4 years since we've actually put out music, um, and we kind of can't wait around any longer because otherwise we're just gonna slowly fall off the map.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that was certainly interesting, and like I think I understand why labels and I guess to a lesser extent artists do have the single trickle thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't like it, and I feel like it's everyone's really over it. Maybe I'm just chronically online on Reddit and Twitter, but
Yeah.
like a lot of the big complaints that I see about these new albums which are coming out is everybody saying I've already heard all of these songs before. Why would I
Mm-hmm.
bother going and checking out the record for the last like 2 songs, which are most likely like almost B-side level bullshit?
Yeah.
Um, when I can like when it's already all out, and that's what kills like album sales and everything to me at least too.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm wrong. I don't have that insider info, but like maybe it all culminates together, and that's why they do it, and it works better for streaming numbers and everything. And as said, I get it. Um, but to me it's just not the way that I like to listen to a record. And like if a band has like a new record coming out, as I said, we're the exact same way. I will check out like 1 or 2 singles and then wait for the album to drop and then listen to the whole thing. And I think that like a few bands are getting better with it. Like it was cool to see the Acacia Strain pretty much um you know do that. They dropped like 2 singles from the record and
Mm-hmm.
then dropped that album. I think also what started to change, which I've definitely noticed in the last like 2 years, is the lead up cycle is a lot shorter, like
Yeah.
considerably shorter. Like
Yeah.
I literally saw like an album get announced. What was it yesterday? And they're like, it's coming out on like the 6th of March, and I'm like, that's 5 weeks. That is crazy.
Yeah.
Like, how do you cram like 3 or 4 singles plus like PR into that unless you drop
Yeah.
like 2 of the singles and then go for the album release. Like how does that I get it because it's almost like a
Sure.
guerrilla marketing tactic. And like I guess in people's minds they go, oh, it's only coming out like a month's time. Like I'll just come back, circle back in a month. Whereas if you have to wait like 4 months, people almost forget about the record coming out. Um, and so yeah, that was like a really interesting because I feel like we've done the complete opposite. Where we've gone, we're gonna we're gonna announce the album on in November and it's gonna come out. Oh no, actually it's not too bad. But we had Assassination Run in October, and then the album's
Mm-hmm.
coming in February. So I'm like,
Yeah.
that's a 4 month window, and it's because we nobody wants to release anything in January because everybody hates January for an album
Mm-hmm.
release cycle. So we had to push it back to February, and yeah, it's just interesting, like the dynamic split, I think, because it gave us a little bit more time to kind of get stuff ready for the last 2 singles and whatnot too.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's interesting how bands and labels kind of go about it nowadays. especially like
Yeah.
from the single trickle through to like the very short album release window cycle. It's interesting just how the landscape has kind of changed even in the last like 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I forget what artist it was, but I want to say it was back in like November, maybe. Um, they had been dropping single after single after single. And I'm not kidding, man. I think they had 6 singles dropped. And then they were like, oh, by the way, we have an album coming out. It added 2 more songs, and it was the 6 singles that they had just been dropping. And it's like, you're not dropping an album. You already released an album, and now you're going, here's bonus tracks. Like,
Yeah, pretty
this
much.
is
Yeah.
bullshit. Like, everybody was mad about it because, like you said, what's the point in me going back to listen to this front to back now? Like, they're you've already had them out for months at this time.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. Like, I guess, again, me being the old man that yells at clouds, crotchety, whatever, the cynical side of me says, I like the more structured, intentional release setup rather than the single trickles and whatnot. I get it for certain aspects, but I think, even though this podcast is on streaming platforms and whatnot, I think that's the culprit, right? Is that streaming and our attention spans and everything has kind of shrunk so much. Short form content is king. So now it's like, well, we kind of have to single trickle
Mm-hmm.
because we have to constantly be releasing something to stay relevant.
Yep.
And it's almost, to me, it's almost counterintuitive though, because I feel like if I'm gearing this especially towards my fan base rather than trying to garner new fans intentionally, my fan base will wait for the piece of art to some
Yep.
extent. Now, if you're obviously a newer band, or like you're returning to the scene or something like that, like maybe that is the right cycle, because it's like, hey, we have to get back to relevancy.
I think that's a good way of putting it. It's funny that you say that. I think like Jesse, who's our new guitarist, he's in another band called like Silverfang, um, and they're very much like the small, fresh band, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And when he first joined, they pretty much had like a kind of a release plan of releasing a single every month. And I feel like or every month, every 2 months. And I feel
Right.
like that because he's also a marketing guy as well. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's his day job. Um, and so is his partner Steph, who's the vocalist of the band too. So they're very much like locked into like what works marketing wise and everything.
Yeah.
And I feel like yeah, for a band of their size or smaller or slightly bigger, who's new to the scene and everything like that, this slow trickle release strategy works a lot better because like it's you're constantly putting new stuff into rotation all the time and it algorithmically blows up the numbers. And that's good because it's it
Right.
works better for that kind of thing. But for an already established band, for example, let's say like us, or if you want to throw any of the bands of the last 10, 20 years that have like kind of constantly been releasing stuff or consistently releasing stuff, doing the single trickle thing, I think, is what has pissed everybody off. Works for
Mm-hmm.
new bands, especially to like get their name out there and everything like that, because short form content is king and people's attention spans are fucking dog shit. Um, so
it's
doing
it's
that
true.
doing that for a new band makes sense, but for everybody that already know, we'll say like, oh, fuck it, Motionless and White or someone like that,
Mm-hmm.
or Memphis Mayfire or someone, or Knocked Loose even, we'll say, like doing you know, um, the sixth single thing. Not saying that they had done that, but doing like the sixth single thing, it kind of puts people off because that fan base is already waiting and established for an album or a full
Mm-hmm.
body of work that they can really sink their teeth into. And so that's where it's where people are getting really tired and really sick of it. They're like, we want to
Yeah.
be able to put on albums and listen to them all the way through, um, but they just don't.
Yeah.
Or the labels just don't, or they go against it, etc. So, not saying that the bands just aforementioned do that,
Right.
but I'm just using them as like an example of in that same kind of blown up realm where everybody knows who they are. There's no need to
Yeah.
do the single trickle thing because
Yeah.
everybody knows who you are.
But like, we'll use one from your neck of the woods. If Parkway Drive was getting ready to drop another album, we already know what Parkway Drive's capable of. We know what the sound is. Like, I want this to be single album.
Yep.
Give me a taste of your heavy, give me a taste of your light, and then an album,
Yep.
because I'm already here for it. Rather than like you said, a younger band or a newer band, like those multiple singles, people are it will make it a food thing, right? So the new snack. So like I want to eat it constantly. And then once I'm like, I've had my fill, then I'll get it every once in a while.
Yep.
But until that young band gives me that enough taste to be like, yes, I really like this thing, I can wait for the meal now.
Yep.
It's kind of crazy, like, with TikTok and everything else, Instagram Reels. I think fan bases are also understanding of it, but also, to your point, getting frustrated sometimes with that short form content of like, yeah, we've heard this verse 9,000 times. Fucking move on.
Of
Uh,
course.
like, and we're all guilty of it. Emarosa's getting right, or had just dropped a new song. I'd already heard the fucking chorus to that song legitimately 50 times, before the song was ever released. And it's like, it's cool, but I need to know what the fuck it means in the whole concept of the song.
Yep. It's actually it was funny talking to Jesse about this as a marketing person. Jesse, if you're watching this, I'm about to let the people in on some of your secrets that you've told
Pulling
me.
back
Sorry.
the curtain a little bit.
Pull back the curtain a little bit. But he was saying that like what he's kind of found, or someone had said to him, etc., was that what sometimes bands will do is they will write like a piece. Let's say, for example, with Emma Rosa with the chorus,
Mm-hmm.
um, and they'll put that up on their socials, being like, "Yo, what do you guys think of like our new song? Like, do you want to hear the
Yeah.
whole thing, kind of
And
thing?"
there's no
But they
fucking
haven't.
song yet.
But there's actually no song, and so what ends up happening is that song, um, is ended up being written around like a chorus or that one
Yeah.
hook bit, and then they will have like multiple different things for that, um, and so that's kind of like where like this very generic, short formy kind of sounding content based songs have kind of come from. It's because like the intention, and they'll do that for like multiple asset. They'll do that for multiple different things, and they'll see which one works in the algorithm and which one
Mm-hmm.
doesn't, and they'll go, cool. The people want to see more of this because this one has absolutely blown up. Um, we'll write the song around this piece, and then we'll save the other piece for like a later thing. If we decide to do an album at some point, then we'll save it for that or something like that, or
Yeah.
just completely scrap it and never use it again. Um, and because people's attention spans are so quick, if they do scrap that other piece, nobody's going to remember it. Like nobody's going, "Hey,
Right.
does anybody remember that one TikTok video that Emma Rosa?" I'm not saying that you do this, Emma Rosa. I'm just using you as an example.
Right.
um, hey, do anyone remember like that one piece that like Emma Rosa once put up on their page and they never released a song for? Like, what was that about? Everyone's remembering the one that blew the absolute fuck up.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting how people's brains work like that. And like we were kind of talking about it at some stages to see like what would happen. And I'm like, be interested to see like I still am interested to see what would happen, how if we went about something like that, because it's like, hey guys, here's this like unreleased part of the story that we never got to tell. Here's a snippet of it and see what you think, and then just not have any other piece there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it obviously has to work, right? Because like there's no doubt in my mind anyway that there's thousands of artists that are doing exactly that. Like, oh, I wrote this
Exactly.
verse. I'm not sure if I love it yet. Like, I'll record it. I'll put it up. If people gravitate to it, then I'll figure out how to write around it. But
Exactly.
if it flops, okay, cool. It was just an experiment on that verse. Like, whatever. Um, and I think we've talked about it before. Sometimes you run into that thing of it's a good piece, but it's not the right piece for now. So then it
Hmm.
goes in the back pocket that, a year down the road, you're messing around with a fucking riff and you're like, oh shit, like that could work with this. Let's go pull that back out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting how the brains work. I also got told the other day apparently that in order for what bands should have, at least in their back pocket when releasing a single, is 140 pieces of content for one song
That's a
to like
shitload of
push through the
content.
algorithm and make it work. I'm like, Jesse, I'm not making 140 pieces of content.
No,
Like, that's
no,
fucking insane. Like,
that's
and he's like, yeah, I know. He's like, oh no, like obviously we're not going to make 140 pieces of content, but that's like algorithmically what has kind of come back to make this thing work. Um,
that's
and
crazy.
that's
And
fucking insane for a new band, for example. Like, if you don't have the money or the team behind you to do something like that, like that's
right.
fucking insane.
And I guess you may not even have the answer, but like, are we talking 140 unique pieces of content, or does it count like as two when you post it on TikTok and Instagram Reels? Is that two pieces of content, even though it's the same video?
Oh no, that would be
Like,
one. That would be one piece of content.
right.
But I think
Yeah.
the best way that Jesse put it to me was like um you have like major pieces and you have like smaller pieces which kind of just like filter out the algorithm but are constantly pushing you like to that person's thing. So what happens is if you like one band's thing, like for example, when you next come back to refresh the feed, they'll be like pushed to the top. Or like
Right.
things that you like interact with will be pushed to the top the most. So, for example, I'm gonna throw Jesse under the bus. Um, he like they've just done a little kind of 3 day tour from Brisbane through to um, Melbourne with Silverfang and a couple of other bands, and the bands were like swapping out who was headlining for each state and everything based on where
Hmm.
they were from. Um, and so Silverfang just had theirs in Melbourne on Saturday. Um, and I come back to Instagram, and Jesse has posted like 70 fucking photos from that show, all individually.
Jeez.
And so when I liked him, like liked one of the posts, I hadn't realized at the time. The next time I refresh my feed, it's just all Silverfang stuff, and I'm like, I get it, dude, but I fucking hate you,
Yeah. Yeah.
like you bastard. Um,
That
and that's
that's
unfortunately
wild.
like how it works. So that's like a piece of like micro content, for example.
Yeah.
Is that like you have like show photos? They'll post like fucking 30 of them in one go. And like every time you refresh your feed for that like day, it's just all Silverfang stuff. You're
Yeah.
constantly being
That
pushed to it.
that's nuts. And like, I mean, I do, I do concert photography and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen some of my posts and whatnot.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'll do a small gallery per artist of a show.
Mm-hmm.
But like, and I guess maybe it's because I don't want to be that annoying guy that like, you know, because like realistically, sure, I could post every one of those photos individually and do 10 photos of each band as individual posts, but like, why? For
Why?
me anyway, it's like I would much rather people be like, oh, it's cool that he does a gallery rather than, yeah, I'm tired of seeing this motherfucker on my page. Like, let's get him out of here.
Yeah.
So
No,
yeah,
I say
no,
yeah, some things like it works for, and then some
right.
things you just get really frustrated with. Obviously, me and Jesse being in the same band, every time I see his face pop up, I'm like, you motherfucker.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, and then you have major pieces of content which you can like reuse kind of over and over again. So like music
Yeah.
video snippets or like live stuff, or if you're having to like promote a tour or something like that, then obviously you have like the tour flyer and everything. So there's like 100. I'm like 140 is a lot,
Yeah.
but when you kind of break it down, it's like, oh, I can make like 60% of this like individual like live photo stuff that we'll post like, you know, 10 of in one day, 10 of the next day, have a dedicated
Yeah.
post to something else, refresh, recycle, everything like that. So,
Yeah. That's fair.
but like regardless, even if you're a new band starting out, like that's a lot of content. That's a
Yeah.
fuckload of content.
Yeah. No, that's crazy. So kind of as we transition to the end here, I've enjoyed this conversation as I did last time,
Thank you. So
Um,
bye.
you're, again, I think your story, your universe is so unique and well written, and allows, you mentioned the word immersion earlier. I think it's very easily to get immersed in your universe when you're planning out the next stage of this, this cycle with the new album, and like planning the shows. If you're trying to tell that story, and let's say 5 songs are the I need to show somebody enough lore to get them hooked in. What are the 5 Gloom in the Corner songs that are like, here's the lore to come into this world?
Oh, as in from a live perspective or just from in general?
Let's do in general because I think
Okay.
because you're across the water, it's a little harder for my
Uh,
listeners to get to see you a little more often.
yep.
Most of my listening base is in the US, so
Okay. Um, ooh, I think like let me at least pull up
gotta
Spotify.
have the track listing.
remember
I get it.
remember
It's
what I
fine.
have.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, the catalog's getting pretty big for you, so
yeah, I know. That's why I'm like, shit. What do I choose? Um, I think let's be fair and say five or six. I want to say um Jericho for its theatricality. I think that's kind of like the perfect middle point between RD and Trinity. I feel, and that's
mhm.
probably where we're more so sitting now than anything else. Um, Assassination Run for heaviness.
Mhm.
I guess you could probably put Misanthropic in that too.
Yeah.
Um, that's three. Angels. That's life. And probably New Order as well.
Yeah. I
Give you
think that's a solid
a
set.
broad range of sonic cacophony.
Yeah. Yeah. And for those that are wanting to get, fully immersed in the lore and the story, what do you think, or how strict do you think they need to be about not only albums front to back, but the actual continuity of the story and start at the beginning to work their way forward?
um, ooh, that's a good question. I feel like we have a couple of playlists on our Spotify as well, which put everything chronologically in order. So we have one for the first arc, and we're slowly building forward the next one for the next arc.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but to be completely honest, like the Fear Me arc is a fucking shit show because it was initially not meant to be that long, and we just kind of kept pushing things out and pushing things out. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure we talked about that when we were doing the Trinity interview. Trinity was originally meant to come next, so
Yeah.
the Fear Me arc is just all over the place, full of plot holes, full of this, that, and the other, and it's just fucking all over the place. So my experience would be if you want to listen to it, listen through the albums just like as a whole. So start from Fear Me, finish on Ultimate Polivia, just like as a regular listen through, and
Mm-hmm.
then look at the playlist and go, okay, I can see where like things have been shuffled around. We also do have that Fear Me arc document, which is in our beacons or landing page or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and that gives you like a proper actual rundown of the story. It's not that long. I know it says 70 pages in the PDF, but a lot of it is built up with like world building stuff. The actual story itself is only about like 15. Chill.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, as for Trinity moving forward, I think you've got to start with Jericho because Jericho directly leads into Trinity. Um, and then everything coming forward is pretty much like chronological. So yeah, I wouldn't stress too hard. We have the about sections in the YouTube in and Genius. Um, everything's pretty straightforward. I will be making a doc at some point for the Trinity arc. I just haven't gotten around to it yet because it's a lot of work and that thing took a while to build last time. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, that's my recommendation at least.
Awesome. I'm stoked for you, man. I said it the last time. You guys are, I think you're cresting that hill that I mentioned that you were climbing last time, right? Like you were getting close to the peak of the hill where it's like, okay, we can see the world and things are opening up for us. I think you're right at the peak now. And like with this album, hopefully it's that the floodgates, for lack of a better term, kind of open up and it's, oh shit, now we're so busy we don't know where to go. Like it's not a
Hopefully,
matter
fingers
of
crossed.
where can we go.
Yeah,
We don't have time to figure out where to go. And I think, again, not blowing smoke up your ass, but kind of in the sense that, again, you just don't like compliments. Most of us don't. This album, again, I haven't heard it all yet, but knowing where that story goes and the intentionality that you've put behind this new album, I'm excited to see the emotional side of these characters. Not that the pulp of action hasn't been awesome, but to, like you said earlier, to immerse a little bit deeper and go, oh shit, that's why Clara thinks the way she does, and that's why we're dealing with these things with Rachel a little bit, and this is how this is all really pieced together as a core group.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I feel like I've gotten a little bit better at taking compliments, but like, still no.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, thank you. I'm excited for people to hear some of these tracks. I think like a lot of the old fans especially will be nostalgically driven with tracks like Shadow Rhapsody too, um, and and Painkiller and stuff like that. Especially gets like a little bit fear me ish. I
Mm-hmm.
think with that side of the album. But yeah, I'm excited for everybody to hear it. I think it will do reasonably well.
I think it will. I'm
Hopefully,
pretty
fingers crossed.
positive it will. So, as always, super appreciate you. I'll give you the last couple minutes. I'm gonna link all the things for you, but where can people interact, grab more of the lore, you know, be in tune with everything?
Obviously we have Spotify, Apple Music, all the fun stuff. We have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. No MySpace, unfortunately. um,
I'm waiting
we
on
have
Tom to
a
bring it back.
Oh, we got time. Come on.
Yeah.
We have a Discord as well. I'm pretty active in the Discord. We have like lore discussions and stuff like that, specific chats for that where people can kind of discuss what they think is either going to happen or, ask questions to me. And most of the time, I will answer them, and as long as it's not giving anything away before something is
Yeah.
released. Um, but yeah, I think that's almost everything. We have a run coming up with King 810 and Dreg in March. We're going to be playing a few new songs from the album off that too. Um, yeah, I think I've covered everything.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm going to open the challenge for people in your Discord now. We need to start a fanfic channel within the
Please don't do
Discord
that.
there.
Please don't do that. Half of them are like are teetering on that anyway, and I've been scared to open Discord every day since.
Oh, it would be great.
Would it?
Yeah, it'd be great in the sense that somebody did it. The
Okay,
actual
sure.
content is probably not going to be great. Awesome, man. I appreciate you so much. Always a
Of
blast
course.
talking to you.
Thank you.
Hopefully you'll get
Likewise.
over to the States, as big of a shithole as it's been lately. Uh, and, we can see some tour action and whatnot.
Hopefully. Fingers crossed. Fingers
Yep.
crossed.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you. I'll let you know when this goes live.
Easy. Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course.
See ya.